Hello guys, welcome back to an episode of Elder Scrolls Lore, and before we start, today we have hit over 800 subs. We're at 807. I don't know how or when, I just remember waking up and having over 800, so I just want to give you guys an extreme thank you, because that is crazy that we hit over 800, and it seems like we hit it relatively quickly as well. But with that, we're just gonna hop right into the lore. So today we're going to be talking about Alessia, and little is known about Alessia's early life, as she was a human slave in Cyrodiil and was pretty much under the control of the Aleads. This is where men essentially knew no freedom, and any record of her original tribe, family, or given names were erased. But it is the fact that she did grow up in Cyrodiil and was part of a herd of men that were all across the Neben. Now, the Nord king Harald had conquered Skyrim and founded the first human kingdom on the continent of Tamriel. Harald managed to drive the elves completely out of Skyrim, primarily Cyrodiil and Morrowind as well, and the human slaves saw a possibility for the same thing to do with their own rulers. So, at the same time, the Alead government was severely fractured. Dozens of separate kingdoms or city-states constantly fought each other for power, and the strong minority of Alead nobility finally felt sympathetic to some human causes. Now, Alessia appeared to have taken advantage of this period of trouble and strife and managed to launch her uprising. Now, essentially, Alessia needed help, and she got this help from the Divines. And initially, the Aleads generally worshipped the Altmiri Divines, but dealt frequently with Daedric princes to keep their slaves in line. The Nords of Skyrim worshipped a distinct group of gods that were much more sympathetic to humanity over Myr. Alessia began to pray to these gods for assistance and freeing her people, and at Sancre Tor, this vision was given by Akatosh, and it's sometimes hinted that it also could be Kinnereth, but in this version, it was from Akatosh. And it was here that Oblivion is cut from Mundus in order to deny the Aleads their supernatural aid. Kinnereth sent her son, a Nordic demigod hero, Morehouse, to advise and aid Alessia, and during this period, Morehouse is actually identified as Alessia's lover through the Song of Pelennor, which claimed he was embarrassed at his appearance because of her. He helped rally the other slaves to her cause, and from that moment on, she was known as the Slave Queen. Kinnereth also sent visions to Alessia that would help her fight against her masters. In the third of these visions, another legendary figure of the era, the infamous crusader Pelennor Whitestrake, was also sent to become the leader of her army. Now, around the 242 of the First Era, Alessia's army finally struck out their masters, and Pelennor Whitestrake, in particular, became a legendary brutal figure due to his brutal decimation of the Alead armies and kings. Alessia herself would often have to intercede with the Divines on his behalf because of the quote-unquote madness that took over him in battle. He committed a number of atrocities when it came to slaughtering the armies of the Aleads, and by killing pretty much anyone in his way, whether it be human or elf. The Nordic king essentially took no time to waste in joining the Alessia's rebellion against the elves, and the human armies quickly began to drive out the Aleads of the populated regions of Cyrodiil. Now, the human strategy was to drive the Aleads inward towards the White Gold Tower, forcing the front to become increasingly smaller and circle around Lake Rumar. It was during this period in the late war, the Alead king Umaril was given control of the armies. Umaril, like Pelennor and Morehouse, was of divine blood, and having an Alead mother but a divine father of a previous Kelpa. As such, he was given one of the few that had the abilities to match Pelennor in battle. To further his advantage, Umaril also struck a deal with the Daedric Lord Meridia, which granted the use of Aurorans as foot soldiers. Pelennor eventually defeated Umaril, but just barely, and Umaril's spirit escaped to Oblivion, where he would await and return centuries later. The remaining Alead kings swarmed down and pretty much split Pellennor's body into 8 pieces, leaving his head for Alessia and Morehouse to find. However, the death of Pelennor couldn't halt the human revolt, and after years of fighting, Alessia's army finally took control of the White Gold Tower itself, ending the reign of the Aleads in Tamriel. Now, Alessia's victory would not have been possible without the intervention of Skyrim, though she did receive some help from rebel Iliad lords during the siege of White Gold Tower, and the popular image of the Iliads as brutal slave masters would go down as fact. However, these rebel lords would actually gain vassal kingdoms under the Empress of Cyrodiil, and Alessia and her successors were actually more pragmatic than it is traditionally believed. Now, Alessia's first major act as empress was to abolish the worship of the Iliad gods. However, she was a shrewd politician, enough to realize that her people had never known any other gods. Alessia knew that she had to be careful when choosing the official state religion, and she could not afford to anger her Nord allies at the same time, but her own people could not adjust to the complete Nordic pantheon in one single generation. Her compromise was to merge the two religions, choosing to keep the less controversial Iliad gods, such as Akatosh, and to bring in the Nordic popular ones such as Dibella, and recreating Kine as Kinnereth. She sidestepped the issue of Lorkhan by leaving him out of the Eight Divines, but identifying him as the missing ninth god, a brother to the Eight Divines, who was otherwise absent from the pantheon. The worship of the Eight Divines, along with the Empire itself, would go on to become the most popular and most prominent region all across Tamriel. And that is all we essentially have in terms of her reign. We do know about her death, and near the end of her reign, as Alessia lay dying, she was visited by Akatosh, who bound her soul to the Amulet of Kings before Pelennor took her up, possibly to Aetherius. Alessia left a pretty large legacy, and after binding her soul to the amulet, Akatosh named her Saint Alessia, the first saint of the humans. Her followers would become known as the Elysian Order and would remain in power over a third of Tamriel for decades. They would be responsible for ultimately driving the last of the Iliads out of Tamriel and imposing strict anti-elven practices across Tamriel for much of the First Era. While the Order itself ultimately died out, Saint Alessia continued to be venerated as part of the modern Imperial Pantheon after its demise. The covenant struck with Akatosh to keep the Oblivion Gate shut was also made with Alessia's descendants, and in this way Alessia would be the first of the Dragonborn Emperors. A few centuries later, Riemann Cyrodiil, the hero who defeated the Akaviri invasion, would formalize the process of lighting the dragon fires and passing the amulet as the rites used to crown a new emperor. Even during the worst periods of Cyrodiil's history, the fires remained lit and kept Tamriel safe until the end of the Third Era, marked by the assassination of Uriel Septim VII and all the known heirs of the throne. Martin Septim was the last Dragonborn Emperor to wear the Amulet of Kings and sealed the Gates of Oblivion with his death. And that is all we have. I took an extreme amount of time, not extreme, but it took me a lot longer than usual to record the audio because my voice is being annoying, but relatively outside of that, it was nice to come back and be able to record a video again. It's been a while since I've actually intentionally recorded a video, but it was nice to come back and do that. Other than that, though, we have hit 800 subs. Over that now, we're at 807, and I cannot thank you guys enough. It's fantastic that we hit this, and something you should expect in the future in terms of future video. We're going to be doing the Cult of the Ancestor Moth soon, so I know that was requested roughly 3 or 4 months ago, and I just never got around to it, and so that is coming. Don't worry about it. It's going to be probably a longer video. That's why I've been kind of putting it off as of late, and so I'm going to take some time out in the coming week to actually structure that and organize it so I can get that done as well. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I don't think there's any other news other than that, and I hope to see you guys in the Discord chat with the link in the description below, and I hope to see you guys around. Peace. If you just happened to stumble upon this video and enjoyed, maybe consider subscribing. If you are a returning subscriber and you enjoyed, please hit that like button. It really helps way more than you actually think it would. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Peace.